So we want to pick up our conversation about Iran and Ed Luce with your latest piece for the Financial Times, which is titled, "This Time Trump and Netanyahu Have Really Fallen Out." And in it, you write in part, quote, "Netanyahu sold Trump and his own public on the idea that after 47 years, Iran's theocrats were finally meeting their Waterloo. Rarely has a geopolitical roll of the dice gone so rapidly wrong. The Israeli leader thus faces an unpalatable choice. Either he submits to a deal that leaves Iran considerably stronger than it was before February 28th, or he breaks with the U.S. by trying to scupper the deal. The America First camp will be primed to praise whatever deal Trump strikes, even if it's less good than Obama's, which Netanyahu also did his best to scupper. From their point of view, Trump's flirtation with Middle Eastern forever wars is over. He is back to the president they thought they knew. Netanyahu is often called Israel's Houdini. Even he, however, will find this vice hard to escape. Should he try to jeopardize the Iran talks, Trump's reaction could be worse than mouthing off to a reporter. And Ed, how bad could it get?
Well, so part of this draft MOU is unconsulted with Israel, but part of it is that Israel withdraws from Lebanon. That is how the Iranians understand it. And that is something that the Israelis are not prepared to do. It's very unclear whether Iran has full control over Hezbollah, but if Hezbollah continues to fire rockets at Israel, Israel has said it will respond and it will not withdraw from Lebanon. So if you take that as read, this will immediately jeopardize the deal. But I think the sort of bigger picture here is that Netanyahu's life's work is getting rid of the Iranian regime. And he thought on February 28th that he was now on the cusp of realizing his life's work. And you heard the language, from Trump talking about the people rising up, the regime being changed, unconditional surrender, and all the kinds of things that were music to Netanyahu's ears. Trump is now saying that the Iranians are very rational, they're very reasonable people, that Israel should stop sort of targeting apartment blocks in Beirut, that it should, it should ideally outsource the battle with Hezbollah to the leader of Syria, because Israel can't be trusted. Of course, he said those things that he said to Axios about Netanyahu. It's a family show, so I won't repeat what he said. I was talking last night to David Ignatius at an event, and we agreed that we had never heard an American president talk in that way about a leader of of a friendly nation. As Trump did about Netanyahu. So this is a political death sentence for Netanyahu, and therefore we'll see what he does over the next 60 days, whether he tries to undermine this deal. But Trump's made it very clear that he's going to get this deal with Israel's support or not. And, the potential for a U.S.-Israeli breach should not be underrated.
David, as Ed says, Prime Minister Netanyahu thought at long last he had found the president who was going to help him wipe out Iran. Its military capability, its nuclear program, take out the regime, all of those things. We go back to that reporting from the New York Times inside the Situation Room, where Prime Minister Netanyahu came and explicitly made the case to Donald Trump and convinced him to launch the war in Iran. And now here we are all these months later, where you have a memorandum of understanding and talks that from Iran's side need to include Israel pulling away from Lebanon. And Israel says we can't do that as long as Hezbollah is striking us from there. So not only did Netanyahu not get what he wanted out of this war, he may have to retreat because of the agreement that Donald Trump appears to be ready to sign.
Yeah, if this unfolds the way it appears to be unfolding, this isn't just it's a defeat for America. It's a potential disaster for Israel, because if you look at the larger context here, Israel burned a lot of its relationships with a lot of countries in the world over the last couple of years, but it has absolutely wrapped both arms around the Trump administration. It has thrown all the dice in with the Trump administration. And if you have a rift here, if the end result here is not only pulling in Hezbollah into the deal, making Hezbollah a beneficiary of the deal, but also creating a degree or maybe even entire rupture with the Trump administration, then all of a sudden Israel is going to be in a situation where it is going to look into the world and see fewer and fewer friends, and its most powerful friend is now deeply uncertain in its relationships with the country. So obviously we're thinking first and foremost about the impact of this deal on the United States. But if you put on the hat of analyzing this from the standpoint of Israel's best interests, not only do you not totally destroy the nuclear program, not only do you not completely destroy the Iranian missile program, not only do you not end its support for proxies, you've actually brought one of its proxies in, the worst one, the most dangerous one in, as a potential beneficiary. This is a disastrous for Israel.
Well, again, if the MOU that we've seen, the draft of it, is anywhere near the final deal, and based on reporting, Mike Barnicle, from several outlets, the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post and Murdoch owned outlets who actually have been far more supportive of Donald Trump than not, then this is a disaster. Yeah, and by the way, I just want to ask everybody if they can just step back for a second and take Donald Trump out of this, take Democrats, Republicans, the midterms out of this, take 2026 out of this, and look what the world will be like over the next decade if this deal actually goes through. Mike, we're talking about $100 million. The New York Times, or the Wall Street Journal is estimating $100 billion in unfrozen funds. J.D. Vance admitted to the possibility of a $300 billion fund for the Iranians. It's a reparations fund. Like, we lost the war. And you go down the list, a nuclear language that is identical to the same language the Iranians have been using for 50 years. Donald Trump distracted, saying, oh, we're not even concerned about the nuclear materials in there. Why even go in there after it? You know, I can add all of this up. And if it's anywhere close to what news reports are suggesting, Mike, this isn't a disaster for Donald Trump. This isn't a disaster for Republicans or Democrats. This is a disaster for America.